So a change happens to us, and no change happens without an ending, right? Even if we're heading for something exciting, marriage or having a new baby, it's a change and there's a transition that has to go on. It's usually not that smooth. So we have to take a look at it. And this is where, to go back to that, we have an ending. Say an ending was a fire. We have what William Bridges called the messy middle, and a lot of people take that wording in, the messy middle. That's where everything happens. All the transition happens.
Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show, because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Changing the Channel. I have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Suzanne Campi, and she is a professional speaker and certified coach with a BS in psychology. She's always been fascinated with what makes people do what they do, especially when it comes to major changes in their life. So welcome to the show, Suzanne. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so we were kind of catching up before the show. We had a nice little conversation, and we kind of came across the topic of systems thinking when it comes to transitions. And, I think you've been studying this for a long time. So help us understand what that is. I've had people on that are familiar with systems thinking, where you expand and you're kind of looking at it from a zoomed out perspective. But when it comes to transitions, what can you tell us about that period in people's lives?
Yeah, I'd love to. Do you ever notice that when you come across a change, something that happens that rocks your world, that you immediately freak out? I think we tend to. I just realize as humans that we tend to hate liminal space, meaning we hate being in limbo. We hate when something changes on us. We want everything to just go along, kind of flatlined, and we'll be happy, and be on the treadmill. Well, I noticed this, over 30 years ago when my parents' house burned down, actually, which is pretty prophetic, being that we're going through so many fires and so many people are going to be in this phase of their life in LA, which is really sad and really tragic. It is a huge disruptor of life when your domicile, your home, your safety is just flattened within minutes. And after their house went down, it was really interesting. There was over 3,200, I believe 2,500 structures in that one that went down. So you watch neighborhoods and communities get together, and people were crying. People were curled up in the fetal position. There's those who pretended, we'll just get through this. People had their different ways of dealing with it. As, we're humans, we're all different. And it fascinated me how different that was. There's people that just got up, moved out of the area, fine, dealt with it. But it was a pain that went on. Like my dad, for instance, walked on his empty lot every single day for a year. If he drove to the area, this was before cell phones, you knew where to find him. He was on his empty lot, walking back and forth with his little head down. And it was traumatizing, but he worked through it. I mean, he felt the pain. He talked about the pain. He worked through it. And my mom had her way about it. They bought a little condo. They bought scissors again. She said, whatever you do, drop your underwear drawer into your purse, because you don't want to be shopping for underwear the next day. So William Bridges' work came to my attention there at that point. And William Bridges wrote the books on change and transition. So a change happens to us, and no change happens without an ending, right? Even if we're heading for something exciting, marriage or having a new baby, it's a change and there's a transition that has to go on, it's usually not that smooth. So we have to take a look at it. And this is where, well, to go back to that, we have an ending. Say an ending was a fire. We have what William Bridges called the messy middle, and a lot of people take that wording in, the messy middle. That's where everything happens. All the transition happens. You're coping, you're dealing, you're buying new things, you're talking to people, you're moving forward in a kind of a zigzag fashion, as I always say. Calls that the messy middle. I like to call it the miraculous middle. It is messy, but there's also miracles that come about. When you're heading in a direction, things fall into place typically, right? And so just head there. So there's that whole middle part of a transition. And when you're going through it and you realize, oh, this is just kind of what people go through, it helps to know it's kind of normal, that things are messy, they're not linear, you're heading that way, you're slipping backwards a little bit. It's all okay. It's part of the process. And then there's a new beginning. You end up flushing it out, figuring it out in the end. There will be a new normal someday. So understanding that that change that happened, as tragic as it was sometimes, and then sometimes it's not tragic. It's like, I wanted a baby. I got this baby. I'm freaking out. You left a life with no responsibility, and all of a sudden you've got the weight of the world on your hands, which is a human being. So understanding that any change in life, any transition can really rock your world really helps. I just feel it really helps. And just to know that's a process.
So what do you do when you're working with people who are going through transitions? And you're typically working with people nearer to the end of their life, coming into retirement and focused on that kind of transition. Like, what are you getting people to see that they're not seeing typically when they're in that miraculous middle or messy middle?
Messy middle, whichever it is at the time, right? You know what? I actually started career coaching back over 10 years ago. And that was another transition, right? Changing careers. For the most part, I worked in a center where people had been laid off. So a layoff is traumatic. There was one client of mine had been with her company over 30 years. She was still extremely vibrant in her late 50s, super smart, super sharp, thought she'd retire with them. And when you're with a company for 30 years, she had her kids. She got married during that time. She lost her husband during that time. She thought they were her family. She thought she was safe. And all of a sudden for them to say bye-bye, that is traumatic. That's like a divorce, right? Mm-hmm. So she went through it, and I invited her to be with it, to not run out. Quite often when people lose a job, they just resume, put it out on LinkedIn. They just want the pain to be over and they just want to move on. And what I really, really advise people to do is take a step back and look at what ended. Because we don't tend to, even with the death of a loved one. We have a funeral maybe one day, and then we have to be back at work and move on. And if we feel that pain, it's almost so insurmountable. We don't want to feel the pain. So I really talk to them about feeling whatever happened. And that can be a paradigm shift in our life, especially when you're dealing. I think your generation's way better at it, and our generation's learning from your generation. My daughter actually wrote or did a TED Talk on feeling your feelings. So I learned from my kids. We were admired if we went through a trauma and didn't say anything about it. Literally admired. That was like, oh, wow, you went through that. Good for you. I never heard about it. That's where you were lauded as a strong person. And now our debts are, we got Crohn's and colitis, and, it gets you. And we all got high blood pressure. That pain will come out in your body. So I implore people to take a step back. And when I deal with my retired folks, people who are retiring, honor your career, honor what you went through. And if I'm working with somebody who lost a job, honor how well you did. Honor that you made it this far. Just love on yourself. Approve of yourself. We tend to also, as Xers and Boomers, not really take a look and go, I did a good job, We tend not to do that. So how about just taking a step back and honoring it and understanding that everything happens for a reason. And I know that's simplistic, but I believe in the universe that way. Everything happens for a reason, and you're going to end up stronger and in a better place. I never worked with a job seeker who didn't end up in a better place. Never. And sometimes the first step or the first job they took wasn't the one, and it was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I hate this. But then the next one. So you realize, looking back, hindsight's always 20/20, right? It's like,
Right.
that all happened perfectly. So I landed in this place where I'm really happy.
The journey to finding myself started with a shift in how I viewed my health. That is why I am proud to partner with Purium, the transformation company. What if you could support your health with a system designed for today's challenges? Purium is more than a supplement company. It's a solution for regenerative health. Their whole food products include the only clinically proven glyphosate detox, helping you eliminate the toxic buildup caused by modern farming. Pair that with Beyond Organic superfoods and the most efficient source of protein on the planet, and you've got a powerhouse combination to build muscle, improve digestion, and fuel your energy levels, all while promoting deeper sleep. Plus, Purium is mission-driven with planetary health in mind. They're proud to lead the way in a plastic-free movement using biodegradable packaging as much as possible. True health freedom starts here. Experience the power of this regenerative healing system for yourself and witness your own transformation take place. You get 60 days to try it, and if you truly don't feel any benefit, you get fully refunded. I have personally been using the daily Core 4 products and have noticed an increase in my energy and the depth of my sleep. Use the link in the descriptions to get started today and receive at least $50 off your first order over $75. Yeah, I think you bring up some good points. Definitely as far as feeling the feelings that you're going through and not stuffing them down. I think we've learned, The Body Keeps the Score and some of these other foundational books that have come out in the last 20 years where if you don't feel your feelings, they get stuck inside of you and then they manifest into these diseases that we're not sure where they come from and what they're doing, but it's because we've stuffed all of our emotions and all the feelings and we haven't felt those feelings before. And,
Right.
from a little bit of a spiritual perspective, we've come here to have these experiences, to have not
Exactly.
only the positive experiences, but also the negative experiences. And if you're
Mhm.
just stuffing all those negative experiences down and you're only seeking positive experiences, well, you're building up an incredible amount of, you could call it ions inside of your body, or these emotions, these energies in motion that you're not expressing through yourself, and they just get stuck and build up and continue to wreak havoc on your life
They
until
wreak havoc.
finally until someday something bursts, something breaks, and then if you haven't dealt with it yet, then you go through a major transition that maybe wasn't planned or wasn't you weren't looking forward to this type of
Right.
transition,
Right. An illness.
but an
It comes
illness.
out. When they used to say back in the day, oh, it's all in your mind, like that was a negative thing. It actually is. Your
Right.
illness is a bunch of unresolved crap usually. And sometimes you don't even know what it is. And I'm not to say I don't want anybody to get insulted if they're sick right now and they heard me say that, but honestly, I know the things I've had, like high blood pressure, I've had to take a good look. What am I stuffing? What am I
Mm.
stuffing? And feeling feelings helped that go down. And it's not easy. It is not fun to sit with feelings. Sometimes they're so painful. I had a situation recently that was rough, and I sat with it, and I wanted to come out of my skin. I'm like, okay, your daughter did the TED Talk on feeling feelings. You better sit here and feel your feelings so you can be able to tell your kids that eventually, before you die, you're going to learn to feel your feelings. I sat with it. I wanted to come out of my skin. I swear to God, it was like anxiety attack time on a go. But the good thing is I do like to move. So I hit my mountain and I literally meandered my mountain. I have a mountain that I hike right behind my house. And I did it for like 4 hours. I just
Mhm.
walked and walked and walked. I'm lucky I have a body that works well for me and worked it out that way. Find your healthy way to work it out, because initial reaction, I wanted to grab a glass of wine or two or three. And I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And I'm super proud because it worked
Yeah.
through a little quicker. It really does. You stuff it, it's just going to come back bigger. It's going to come
Hmm.
back and bite you in the bum. It will get you. Will. So I will
It's like
suffer in the
mold.
moment.
Exactly. It's kind of like mold.
Yeah.
What you hide in the darkness grows larger and larger and larger
Oh,
until eventually it just pops out, and you know, it's
right,
gonna come
right.
back and bite you in the butt. So,
Yeah, you talked about like the self-reflection part of it, and that's so huge. And it goes along with spirituality, right? Who's your spirit? What kind of spirit can you rely on right now? Whoever that spirit is. And it might be within yourself, which is beautiful. What's your spirit? Who speaks to you? Is it the universe? Is it those beautiful trees like that are behind you and me right now? That's my spirit. My spirit is, oh my gosh, so multifaceted. It's universal. It's my trees. It's my soul and my heart. Speak to your soul and your heart. And I ask people, think about leading with your heart, because you notice the second you get sad or the second you get weighed down, you're like slumped over. Shoulders go down. I lift those shoulders up and have your heart lead you, not your head. And I used to tell, I owned a fitness studio for 5 years, and I used to tell my clients that lead with your heart and your posture will be perfect.
mm, I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I used to have them kind of walk in the studio, and if they're sad, and then they look at me and go, "Oh," I was always so proud of that. Yes, lead with
Yeah.
your heart. Remember, your heart's in charge.
Um, so I think one thing that I'd love to kind of get into and talk about is, as you're transitioning people, you have this kind of spiritual aspect of the transition and what they're kind of looking for. And now, especially working with, I would assume, more retirees, they have more time to think about their belief systems and who they truly are, and what is the self when they refer to themselves.
Mm.
So I'm just kind of curious as to what is your take on that? Like, what is the self? What is the higher self? What is this like expanded self? And yeah, what does that look like for clients as they find more time to think about it and get into spirituality versus religion? Because again,
Mhm.
religion is great when you only have an hour a week to really, dedicate to whatever is beyond the physical realm. But when you
Right.
10 hours or 30 hours or 172 hours to think about it per week, then what does that really look like?
Well, that's really interesting you hit on that, because first I want to say, so often by the time people get to me and they're retiring, they have been on a treadmill. They have been going. And that's the way they were trained. That's the way boomers and Xers were trained. You just go, 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 go. And you save that money. You never work for fun. You work because you got a job. And the goal is money. The goal is money. And so they've been raising families. They've been raising dogs, whatever they're raising. They've been in relationship. They've been taking care of elder parents. They've had family. They've had this full life, trips, got to plan those 2-week trips when you get 2 weeks off.
Mm,
So they go from one thing, fly to the next, come back home, go back to work sad because they have to go back to work. And it's just a treadmill. And I really admire, like, your generation's like, I'm going to Peru. Screw this. I'm not staying where I don't want to stay. I'm going to take care of myself first. So, and my son, same. He was working a job that didn't work in high tech. He went to nursing school and now he's a nurse. So you guys go, I'm going to look inside. Oh, inside says this. Boom. We weren't trained that way. We had no space for that. If I had
mm,
said to my dad, I don't want this job because, oh, my heart says I might need to do something else. It's not my vibe. It'd be like, your vibe, what's up out there with you? So, so first of all, there's a whole rebooting and relearning on being with oneself. We have never been trained to be with ourselves. And maybe there was a religion. We went to church for an hour on Saturday and then got home and jumped on our computer. I don't know, but to be with oneself is a whole new concept. So sometimes I get people who run in from that treadmill life, work till Friday. I talk to them Monday and they're still going. It's like, oh, I got my to-do list. I got to go to Home Depot and buy this, and I'm going to work on the yard and blah, blah. they have a really hard time slowing down. So getting them to understand that is a process. And their brain wants to work that way. They want me to give them another system. They're like, oh, this retirement coach, she's going to give me a list of to-dos. I'm going to be happy because I have my list. And getting them to back off can be a really long process. And I don't want to disrespect where they are either, because they are where they are. And if I think I have this totally left brain person that doesn't want to take a look inside, they're typically afraid of what's going to burst out. That's more common with boomers and, like I say, younger or older Xers. They're afraid what's going to come out. So they might just keep drinking. They might keep doing the same social stuff. Eventually, in a lot of conversations about who they are, what's important to them, they will start to slow down and go inside. And that is like my favorite work, because I do bring a spiritual bent to my work. And I don't necessarily say it up front. So the first time I'm speaking it out loud to the ether, they will get some really cool insight about themselves, because we're just going to slow down. We're just going to take them back a few notches. And if at first they need the to-do lists, go ahead. That whole first year of any transition is just that. It's transition. There's all different ways to go. So maybe they need that. They need to know that I'm going to respect their to-do list. So we'll keep it up. But then we're going to make it to-be list. Like, who are you going to be? You've been a to-doer for 50 years. Who are we going to be? And how are you going to be today? What are you going to bring to the world? We do talk about legacy a lot. And legacy isn't how much money you're going to leave to the local pet rescue. It's what indelible mark are you going to leave on the people on this earth? And typically people care about them. If they didn't, they wouldn't really work with me. But they care about what mark they're going to leave on people. I know at some point I got to get back to tutoring kids personally, because I love that. Who are you going to make feel way better about their life because you were on this planet? So
yeah, I love that you use the legacy idea and very quickly make sure that you denote it's not about money necessarily, because money only goes so far. It helps some people, you know, it's a means to an end basically. But if you can really show somebody who they truly are, or help them find out who they truly are, or what they're here to do, why they've incarnated on the planet, like that legacy trickles all the way through, where, you know, if you can unlock that in 1 or 2 or 3 people, they can unlock that in 5 or 10 people.
Yes.
And before you know it, we've transitioned. We've made this gigantic transition. And again, like the theme of this show is that we're in this we're in the messy middle of a transition from this kind of separated consciousness where we believe we're against each other on the planet, whether that's through different backgrounds, different religions, through different countries, through different, you know,
the
now
separateness. Oh my God.
Now we're coming into an interesting period where, you know, you kind of have to, you're either Apple or
Orange
or Android. Like,
Hey.
you know, these are the separations that we're experiencing.
That's what you mean. I'm all orange.
No.
I should know, being right next to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, like corporate legencies are kind of becoming this. Okay, like either you're Tesla or you're not Tesla. Like these are the battlegrounds that we have right now. And
are you seeking a path to inner peace and personal transformation? Check out my website, where I offer free weekly guided meditations designed to help you reconnect with your inner self and navigate your day with mindfulness. Whether you're new to meditation or looking to deepen your practice, our sessions provide a supportive space for growth. Join our community today and start your journey towards a more balanced and conscious life. Visit joegarner.net and sign up for our free weekly meditation. Find the link in the show notes.
I think we're in this interesting period. Yeah, we're like, and we're feeling it more because we have to feel it more. Like when you have ignored it for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and then all of a sudden you're forced to sit and be with that, then you have to address it. You have to like go inside. You got to slow down and really decide, okay, what is the right way to move forward in this period? And what I think we're moving towards is this kind of unified um, consciousness on the planet where we do realize that, A, we're a part of a gigantic species called the human species, and then that human species has lineages that exist beyond, our 2000 to 2050 experience, but it extends
Mhm.
longer out, and we're able to communicate with different avenues, aspects. You call them spirits. Like, we can communicate with these spirits that are coming back to the here and now and helping and guiding and sharing with us what it is to go through this transition. It's like having a coach,
It is.
a non-physical coach with you. And that's what I, kind of help people understand is like when you're tuning into your intuition, and that's, I'm an intuition coach, meditation and intuition coach.
Mhm.
When you're tuning into that intuition, that intuitive part of you, that's what you're tuning into. You're tuning into a future version of yourself, a future
Mm.
version of humanity, a future version of someone who existed in this time and is coming back to share his or her wisdom with us
Right.
right now. And
Right.
this is where I think spirituality is kind of heading towards, is that we all need to be tuning into whatever spirits are speaking to us at the time, whether it is the earth or the trees or the water, the wind, like these earthly spirits that we're tuning into, or we should be tuning into, non-earthly spirits. Again,
Right.
people call
Right.
them extraterrestrials or angels, or is oftentimes when you have a religious background. From my perspective, people, when
Mhm.
they speak to angels or the angels speak to them, like they're speaking to spirits in the world that exist outside of our here and now, outside of our, frame of reference for this time. And yeah, to be able to tune into that is just such a powerful, powerful thing. And you have to slow down. Yeah, like you said, you're trying to get these people to slow down so they can tune into it versus just do, 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 do.
Right.
And,
And when you think about all the times you knew and you had that, whether it be spirit nudging you, your intuition nudging you, whatever nudging you, that sixth sense, as people are comfortable calling it that if they aren't as expanded as you were speaking. And the times you didn't tune in and you realized how right it was. I mean,
right,
really understanding that. How many times did you not listen and then go, God, I knew it? I mean, to the point now where, like, if I go to get in my car and I think to myself, did you grab your towel, your sweat towel for your workout? No, it's always in the trunk. No, it's not in the trunk this time, probably. So you might as well go check. I've learned to, I used to override that. No, I don't want to get out and look. It, you quit overriding it. I mean, if you can tune it, once you tune into that part of yourself, you're like, oh, okay, there's a lot there, right? There's a lot there. So
well,
yeah,
a lot of wisdom, a lot of information. It can go as far as you want it to go. And again,
yes.
you can use it for your business as well. If you're still involved in business, you're still working, like you can use your intuition to make better business decisions, to make better career
Mhm.
decisions, to make decisions that have effect on many, many, many people, especially if you're a founder, CEO, like any of these, higher level executives. The
Mhm.
decisions that you make impact hundreds or thousands of people, either within your organization or outside of your organization. And why would you not want to make a decision from the perspective of this is the best way to do it? Or, from the future perspective, drawing
Mhm.
on what are the potential future possibilities or outcomes of this decision, and then making the decision based on that. And I think that is
Right.
a powerful skill to have. And I think, again, it starts with
Mhm.
slowing down. So do you see people, as they go into retirement, as they start to slow down? Maybe it takes them a year or two, maybe it takes them 6 months. I know for
Mhm.
me, when I retired, a couple of years ago, I sold all my businesses. I got out. I traveled the world for a year.
Mhm.
Um, I went down to Costa Rica, and the only way that I got out of the doing aspect of me was went to Costa Rica, didn't have a car. The only thing we could do was we wherever we could walk, I could walk there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So walked to the market, went to the beach, went to the yoga studio, like, and that
Mm,
was my day. Then I came
heaven.
back and sat by the pool for 2 or 3 hours. And it sounds like heaven if you are familiar with that, but coming from running multiple businesses and then
Mm-hmm.
jumping straight into that, it was hell for a while, for two
Oh,
or three
interesting.
weeks.
You had to
It
be
was a
with
very,
yourself, huh?
yeah, it was a very difficult situation. And I had been doing some of the work. I had been
Mm-hmm.
journaling and taking time to meditate and having these experiences. But even having that barrier, that space in between, like that first week or two that I was down in Costa Rica, it was very difficult. Like
Ooh.
I was writing schedules and what I wanted to accomplish and all of this stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
finally realized, okay, I'm here to slow down. I don't think I realized it till the last week or so. It was like, oh, this was a transition period for me to get into this state where I could slow down, and then
Yes.
from there, the rest of the travels was much easier. But yeah, it's just fascinating to kind of be in that liminal space and then all of a sudden realize,
And
oh, okay,
allowing it. And allowing
right.
it. Like it sounds like you stopped and allowed it.
Yeah, yeah.
You allowed it.
It's
You
great.
you knew to do that. Most people don't. They just grab a drink, you know?
Right.
Seriously, and getting people to go from those raucous, really cool trips to Europe or really cool trips to go do and see a lot to, hey, what would you think about a meditation retreat? What would you think about going to Esalen for just a weekend, which is our cool
Mm,
place out here in Big Sur? We've got them all over. We got Spirit Rock. What about just even a day, even 1 day retreat and see how it feels to your system? It
mm,
is. I mean, imagine you had 30 some odd years to deconstruct. These people have double that. And
right.
to take that step back is so courageous. It's so courageous. And it can even start with just 5 minutes meditation a day, right? When people hear that I might suggest meditation, it's a freak out. It's like, I can't stop my mind. Well, you're not going to stop your mind. You can do that when you're dead. So don't worry about your mind going, but bringing yourself back is where the magic happens.
Mm,
So getting them, even that's a baby step, 5 minutes a day. And now I remember when I couldn't do that, I'd fidget, I'd jump up. I'm totally ADD and hyper, so I'd be gone. Now it's like, give me my hour. And it's like candy. It's like candy. It's like, that's where the brilliance comes. So that's step one, sometimes into getting in touch with people's own selves and not being afraid of themselves.
exactly. And then hopefully through that process, you start to make connection with, the parts of yourself that you've never made connection with.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun. I mean, people are typically afraid of trauma's going to come out, right? Well, it might. And, we'll make sure you get taken care of. But also, you get to know who you are, and you're usually pretty cool. Don't be afraid.
right. Exactly. What are some of the tips and tricks as people go through these transitions? Because I do think, I think 2025, 2026, a lot of the spiritual storytellers, foreseers, wayseers are saying that for a lot of people, a lot of humans, the next few years are going to be a bit of a roller coaster, some ups, some
Mhm.
downs, some major transitions. If the dollar collapses, that's going to be something that affects almost every human on the planet. Not that I think it's going to collapse, but
Right,
there's these
right,
potentials in the system for things to really go awry. And from my perspective, it's really just an opportunity to go deep inside of yourself when you have these transitions. So, as people
right.
are experiencing these like transitions in their life, do you have any tips, tricks, kind of shortcuts that you care to share about that help people in this transitionary period of their life?
Mm. I think, again, it's what we've been talking about. It's going inside and getting to know themselves better. The people who have done some work on themselves, if in fact there is a huge upheaval in the system, are going to fare a little better than those who've been just insanely going forward and not thinking. Because
Mm,
I swear I went 40, 50 years without thinking, without going inside, right? So it's a practice. It's a big deal. We're not the majority. We're really not. You're finding those people to talk to and who are like-minded, but that's not the majority of people. And but it's growing. And I do believe people are learning to be with themselves and be heart-centered and spiritual. And I'm hearing too in our world that, I mean, uh, our group of peeps, that there is going to be a big change. And I've also heard that spiritually people are going to be more evolved. So let's hope. That sounds like such a big order. It feels like we're going in the other direction, doesn't it? Like,
Mhm.
I think of just how polarized this country is on politics. It's disgusting. It's like there's this back of my mind. I have this thing where I want to change that. And I keep thinking, well, Gandhi, I mean, look at the people who were one person that changed things. We can be that person. We can be that change. I want to start opening up that dialogue so we quit hating on each other for a freaking vote. We quit assuming this person is this way because of that vote. That's where we're wrong. I'm
Mm.
assuming these other people, this other 50%, are all assholes. And that's not necessarily the news, is it? They probably have the same hopes and fears and as I do. But
Right.
I don't know, it makes me crazy. It just makes me crazy. So I've got to affect that change if it's making me so crazy. I don't turn on I don't have network TV. I don't want to hear it. It's just so
Mm.
ugly. It's so ugly. And I don't see how, when we're headed in this path of somewhat despising half the people in the country, how are we going to also be more spiritually evolved within the next few years? I fear that juxtaposition. I
Mhm.
don't see it. I don't see how we're
Yeah.
going to get there is my thing.
It,
I wish
I
I
mean,
did.
it's always hard to see the solution to the problem from inside of the problem because we're still
Uh-huh.
inside of that problem. We're still in
Yes.
this polarized America. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of countries outside of America have realized how polarized we are. And they're, again, this is where systems like the BRICS system are coming up where, from a financial perspective,
Mhm.
they're building a secondary system in case, not because they want or desire the US dollar to collapse, but if it does, they want to
Mhm.
have a failsafe. They want to have something that is going to help them through this. And the same thing with the political system. Like
Mhm.
what's a little unnerving, I think, is that there is no backup to the US political system.
Mhm.
There's no second road that we can take. If things fall apart, we kind of maybe we go back to state legislature and we kind of remove the national government from our perspective. But
Right.
what does that kind of start to look like? I don't know, and it's hard to really tell. But I do know that there are more than enough people that are intelligent, that are spiritually aware, that know what's going on. That it's not going to get, you know, this isn't the end of the world, and I don't believe humanity is careening towards this cliff and we're going to jump off of it. I think we're
Mhm.
skirting the cliff right now and we're driving fairly quickly next to it, but we have the solutions to all the problems. There's
Mhm.
so many um, ways around this future, and again, to bring climate control back into like the forefront. Yeah, there's so many new
Mhm.
technologies on how to create energy, how to create that are beyond wind and solar. That are, again, those are
Mhm.
renewable sources of energy, but they require non-renewable goods and inputs to find and get that renewable resource. And that, we
Right.
haven't quite solved that problem. But when you get into like nuclear, and we're talking about fusion now, and a net positive fusion experience, which I think happened 2 years ago. There was a net positive. They had a fusion experiment. It was a net positive. It wasn't like a crazy amount, but we figured out, okay, once we have that net positive fusion
Mhm.
solution, now that's just an endless flow of energy. It's like the sun. We've basically created the sun on Earth, and then
Mhm.
being able to create from that, or from the 0 point energy, which is another kind of source point, which is kind of in the quantum realm, which humans are just starting to understand. It's just
That's
fascinating to
fun.
see, and I try to make sure that anytime I'm communicating with people that I'm making them aware that, hey, it does look like things are dark, but the solutions to those problems are out there. If you find them, if you
Right.
search them, if you go and look for them, you're
Mhm.
not going to find them on cable television. Although I will say I saw um, basically the company that is at the forefront of 0 point energy creation,
Mhm.
the International Space Federation. They were on Fox Business earlier this week, which is mind blowing to me that this like
Wow.
super forward thinking company is now getting the press that I didn't think it would get for years and years. But
Mhm.
it's the world is changing, and it's
Yeah.
moving forward, and we
Yeah.
have the solutions to these issues. But for the people that aren't aware, the people that aren't haven't thought about it before,
Mhm.
it does look like turmoil. It does look like chaos. It does look like things are falling apart.
Right. Super good point. Super good point. And I don't even know what to add to that other than when you were first started speaking about it, I was thinking, about the economy collapsing or the world dollar collapsing. I feel like as having been around here longer and watching all the chaos of our past political forays, I'd say, it feels like it's more of the same in a way.
Mhm.
Boomers have seen so much BS as far as what our government's done. It's back from Vietnam. I mean, that's when they decided, hey, we're not going to be like our parents. We're gonna fight the war. We're gonna meaning fight against the war. And the whole hippie generation, they were fighting what the government was trying to pull the wool over our eyes about, right?
Mhm.
And so, in a way, they may be tired and they may think, we've seen this shit before. We've seen this go on before. It's just another hot mess.
Mhm.
And become somewhat resigned. But and then I say that, but I think of, there's always both sides. I'm part of a group called Modern Elder Academy, which is people from midlife and beyond that are up to a lot, to say it briefly. And so many of those people are so involved with the climate and so involved with making sure they leave again a legacy, try to leave this place better than we got it. So there is all kinds, right?
Do you see people in retirement kind of latching on to these more philanthropic activities? Is that kind of a common theme that you see?
You know what? It is common, and especially after they've quite often people just want to travel. So they've done their travels and then they realize this is when they come back to me. Oh my gosh, I've done my travels. I've cooked every meal I want to cook. I've done all those things. And now I want to now what? When they start looking at legacy again, then they start looking at how they can give back. And
Mhm.
where is it important to them? Quite often it is climate. Quite often it is. And they're going and there's a huge, this is Berkeley right here. So people are very involved if they want to be. It's right here for them to get involved in any which way. So, you know, people are all different. They're also different. And I keep saying that, but it is true. And I am seeing it. I am seeing it.
Do you see any themes with like what's motivating people to make that transition? To kind of move towards this
I think it's how well
legacy.
informed. Yeah, it's how well informed they are, how well informed they want to be, because the information's out there. It just depends on where you're focusing. So there is. It just depends on if they're the type that are interested, if they're interesting, if they're digging into the literature. It reminds me of the bumper sticker that says if you're not paying attention, what is it? If you're not mad, you're not paying attention, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's that. If you're paying attention to it and if you're studying up on it, there's a problem. There's a huge problem, but you can also put your head in the sand and do nothing Absolutely. I tend to go there sometimes with the head in the sand part. I do my recycling, I pick up garbage, and then the rest is a little more head in the sand. So it just depends on the energy they want to bring forth to it.
Right.
And everybody's so different. Sometimes they just really rather hang with the grandkids and go to the second home and that kind of thing, which is fine, to each their own. Be a good
Yeah.
person, you know?
I think
Be a good
we each
person.
have we each have our own purpose. We each have our own like
Mhm.
reason that we're here. And I think for a lot of people, I know, I mean, almost every one of my friends that I've had over the last 15 years now has a family, is married, has kids, all of the things. And I'm, the only one, or one of, maybe 5 or 6 that hasn't gone down that road. And I just feel
Mhm.
that it's just not necessarily my purpose in life, that I'm very happy and I'm glad, and I try to support them wherever I can with their kids and what they need and how can they be better parents and all of
Mhm.
that. But it's just not my
Not your jam?
pathway in life, right? But I
Mhm.
love that that it is their pathway, that they're creating this next generation of kids, and the way that they're raising these kids is just beautiful. Like they're creating these emotionally intelligent children that are
Mm.
also interested in creating change in the world and making the world a better place. And it's just really cool to see how each generation has like their thing, that they're the gift that they're sharing with the world. And I
Mhm.
think this one is emotionally intelligent and very, awake human beings coming into the world. And imagine what you could have done
Mhm.
at 19 or 22 if you were as aware as you are right now. And I think that's the cool
Mm.
part. Again, every
Right.
society is built on the shoulders of the society before them.
Mhm.
And this is our gift. And a lot of people really do talk about this. If you zoom out on a decade long perspective,
Mhm.
every single decade that we can remember has been better than the one before it, that at
Right.
least in the last 500 years. And even though it seems like it isn't getting better because we're more aware of the things that were going on,
Mhm.
that awareness prompts people to, okay, let's make a change. Let's change how we're doing things. If this isn't working, even though it hasn't been working for a while, but now we're just
Right.
finding out about it, how do we change that system? And there's so many more people in the world that are empowered to change the system, to make it a better thing, make a better product. Yeah, I love the idea
Mhm.
of the B Corps coming in, and it's for-profit
Yes.
corporations that
Mhm.
also have a mandate, not just to their shareholders, but a mandate to the world, to the planet, to society. This is who they're maximizing their profits for, not just for the shareholders that happen to invest in that B Corp.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
And
I
it's
hear you.
beautiful to
I hear
see.
you. Yeah, you're right. You're very right. And we have to hold on to that, right? To hold on to that belief that it's just getting better.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is. It's all in your
Yeah.
mind.
The more conscious people are, we have the only way is that.
So as we kind of transition, as we go through this
Mhm.
messy middle part, like, what do you see in the future? This is a question I ask pretty much every guest that comes on the show. Like, what is the future for you, as zoomed out as you can possibly get? What does the future look like for the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm. For me personally, or for what I
Um,
leave the world?
yeah, for like what you're leaving the world, for
Yeah.
how you envision the next 10 years to go.
Mhm. That's interesting because you said something earlier that was a real lesson to me. You said, um, if you work with a few people that become more conscious and then they work with a few, or they touch on a few more people and that grows exponentially. Why I never thought of that. It's so logical. You help me get more excited about my legacy by saying that, because if I
Mm,
can help somebody who was completely shut down to open up and share with their, when you change like that, when you open up as a spiritual being, people notice. I mean, you just
mhm.
are who you are. You don't have to say a word. You just are. And then it starts to get contagious. Then the family wants to know, look at her. She's so open. She's so bright. She's so loving and non-judgmental. How did this happen? And it grows exponentially. It's like a tree. So that is it. And you help me be able to articulate it on some level. Is I want to be able to get people to spend these years, especially since I'm dealing with them in their last third, as little more enlightened beings. They were not raised with a mom who said, feel your feelings. They were not raised saying, oh, take a deep breath when you're upset. Where I'm seeing parents do that now. The kid starts to spin out and they go, deep breath. And the kid will go like that and then calm the heck down. It's with those skills alone, this world will be a better place. So if I can get these, and a lot of these people want to be a really good example to their grandkids. And that's a legacy they want to leave. Be a good example. Don't be that shut down, old, boring, old fart in a recliner. Be interested in people. Be interesting. Part of being spiritually opened up is being interested in other people. You're not just mono-focused. It's like, oh, all about me. I got to get the next thing. Once you step out into that spirituality and into that openness, other people are so much more interesting, and you're so much more interested in them. So if we have a generation of grandparents who are so involved and enlivened by their grandkids, imagine the strength that gives those kids. And we don't want them just saying, oh, God, he was boring. He just sat in a chair, he watched TV. No, be alive with those kids. So it takes a village to raise them,
It does, yeah. And I think a lot of people are realizing that. A lot of people are realizing that, living in New York or San Francisco or LA, trying to raise a kid by yourself with no family around is difficult. It's definitely difficult. And I think a lot of people are finding community amongst, the other parents at the kids' school or the other parents in the neighborhood, and it's really cool. I was in
that's cool.
I was in Philadelphia this weekend with a friend. He's got 3 kids, and their neighborhood, he said there was 35, 40 kids in the neighborhood, all within like 6 blocks of each other, and they all get together on Saturdays and play. And I was over there on Saturday, and the 2 kids kind of went over to a neighbor's house for 3 or 4 hours and then came back for the football game. And it was just,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. And again, this is, West Philadelphia, traditionally that when you think, or if you watch the news, like you don't think that these are happening in Philadelphia, in West Philadelphia. Like, and it is, it's really cool to see. And it's because the parents have made this conscious decision to be a part of this community and to get to know each other. And that's just kind of how this builds. And it's, if we can get,
that's brilliant.
500,
that is brilliant. Yes.
Yeah. 500 million kids all kind of raised in the community with all these different perspectives and shifted. I think it creates just a better
major community.
Board.
Yes.
Exactly.
And community is what we're missing. I mean, it comes out in Blue Zone studies about people who live so long. Is one commonality, and the biggest commonality is they all have a strong community. We can't live without it. We're pack animals. I think we really are. We need people.
We need people.
We need people. And I think that's been a big miss in our society as we became so individualistic. We took on pride in being able to do everything by ourselves, but it is a lonely place to be, right? So building that community, having those people you can fall back on. I know I love so much because I have 7 older siblings. When my kids were upset or needed to work something through, quite often I'd find out they went to my sister. I was so happy they had that. They had somebody who wasn't going to be a typical mom answer, but was going to be a safe auntie. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Those kids all have their safe aunties,
Right.
It's brilliant.
Exactly.
It's brilliant. And there's just so much more confidence that comes out of that. For people to know you have, I always had so many people because I have my siblings. There was a lot of confidence that comes from that. You have fallback.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Suzanne, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. Any last words that you want to share with anybody listening right now?
I always just want to tell people to realize their greatness, understand how cool you are, and move forward and don't dwell on the past, even all the mistakes we made. I have a million gazillion of them. Afraid of my life review someday, but you know what? All we can do is be us moving forward. Just move forward in your greatness.
Beautiful. And if people want to reach out, connect with you, if they're going through a transition and they are looking for a life transitions coach, where can they find you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, my website is pretty comprehensive. It's SuzanneCampi.com. That Suzanne is Suzanne and then Campi.com. And my LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day, so you can shoot me a note there. On my website, you can click and do a free just conversation if you want to see if we're aligned for coaching.
Perfect. I love that. Well, I'll make sure I include all those in the show notes. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your light with us today.
Thank you, Joe. I've enjoyed you very much. Thank you for your thought process and putting all of this out into the world. It's fabulous.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.